Okay, I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm going to say what everyone else won't say. Caleb Williams crying while the game is going on in his mother's arms is just weird to me. I don't mean to say Caleb Williams needs to just man up. That's not what I'm saying. Let me just preface it with this. There's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. I'm okay with all of that. I'm not this toxic masculinity guy that doesn't think that you should never cry. That is not the way anyone should be raised. It's okay to release emotion. It's not what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with that. This isn't one of those guys that's going to say, oh, he paints his fingernails. I couldn't care less what Caleb Williams does in his free time with his fingernails. But let me just say this. There's nothing wrong with crying, but there's a time and a place for it. And Caleb Williams crying on the sideline in his mother's arms while the game is going on or it just finished is really weird to me. It's just really strange behavior. Now, this isn't to say football isn't a highly emotional sport, but this wasn't the national championship game. This wasn't even the Pac-12 title. USC season ended a couple of weeks ago when they got their second loss of the season. No team, no committee was going to put USC in the college football playoff if they got only 2 losses. No team, no committee was going to put USC in the college football playoff national championship. They weren't going to make their Pac-12 title game. It was not going to happen. And you're crying because you got your 3rd loss of the season? I heard the commentator say, oh, everyone knows what 3 losses mean. Nothing. 2 losses most of the time means you're pretty much done. And in USC and Caleb Williams' case, with a defense that can't stop a nosebleed, they were done. And so people defending Caleb Williams like, oh, there's nothing like a mother's touch. Oh, look at this emotion that this young man is showing. He cares so much. You can care a lot about the game, but also still be the strong leader that your team needs. Maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I'm a jerk, and maybe I'm picking on the kid. I don't mean to. But in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes is not crying when he loses his 4th game of the season. He's not crying when he loses the conference championship game to Tom Brady a few years ago. He's not crying when he loses the Super Bowl. I get guys being emotional, being teary-eyed. That's fine. But they're not full-on in the stands holding their significant other or their mom and bawling. And in those cases, I get it. But in this one, I just don't get it. This is a Week 10 game in college football in which they were virtually all but eliminated already from any significance this season of winning a championship, of being in the Pac-12 title game. So people will say to me, you're just saying this to pick on Caleb. No, you're the quarterback. You have to be the strong leader. Now, if Caleb Williams is on the sidelines and he just lost this game and he was a little teary-eyed, a little emotional, choked up on his words, there is nothing wrong with that. Football is a highly emotional game. You leave it all out on the field. You're risking your body, especially in college football where a lot of these kids aren't getting paid. I know NIL is a thing, but a lot of these kids aren't getting paid. That's not the case in Caleb Williams' case. But still, it's just very strange behavior to me. It's just very, very weird. Again, maybe I'm being a jerk. But personally, I thought this was a bad look for Caleb Williams. Because in the first time that he faced adversity, he cried. He went into the stands, hugged his mother, and thankfully his mother covered his face because Lord only knows what people on the internet were going to do with that. But he's sobbing, kind of uncontrollably, over a Week 10 loss in college football, again, in which there was pretty much no significance at stake for USC. They were not getting into the Pac-12 title game. They were not getting into the college football playoff. You know, this is just very weird. Instead of Caleb Williams going up to the podium and being the strong leader for USC football and saying, you know what? It's on me. We have to be better. Credit to Washington. But we will have to try to get him next time. Instead, he said he wants to sit in front of his TV cuddle with his dog, and watch shows. There's nothing wrong with doing that. The dude can sit on the couch for hours and watch Friends all day long. But if your plane is going down, do you want your pilot freaking out? Or do you want your pilot staying calm, staying composed, and trying to figure out how we get out of this mess? Similarly, that if you are on a boat, wouldn't you want your captain, if it's slowly going down, to be the calmest, coolest head on the boat? As soon as your leader starts to freak out and sob uncontrollably, you best believe everyone else is man overboard. It's not good. It's not a good look for your leader. You can care a ton about the game, but not sob uncontrollably over a game that really didn't have a lot of significance. This defense, again, not Caleb Williams' fault. They didn't lose because of Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has been winning in spite of his defense. Yeah, he had a couple of games where he wasn't so great. The Notre Dame game comes to mind, but just not a great look. I tried to look at this at a ton of different angles and be like, you know what? It's emotional, but I just don't get it. I genuinely do believe that you can't do that. You lose the locker room. People start to freak out because they're like, well, if Caleb Williams, the presumed number 1 overall pick in the draft, is freaking out, we're done. We're doomed. I mean, that's the guy that's supposed to save us. I don't know. It's not normal behavior. It's not normal behavior. But he's young, and as he gets older, maybe he will come into his own. Maybe he matures a little bit more and he realizes he can't do that. It's not a complete exile of Caleb Williams. I'm not out on Caleb Williams. He's a generational talent. But what happened on Saturday, crying uncontrollably to your mother in a game that really didn't have much significance, they already had 2 losses. It was a long shot to get in to begin with. It's just very strange, very weird behavior to me.